While on a walk around Shottle in Derbyshire, I came across an unusual indicator on the Ordnance Survey map, and this indicator showed there was a moat present in the next field. While on the site, I took the drone up to have a look, and I was very surprised in the findings. I got home and looked through as many periodicals as I could find, and I found it, and I was very surprised. In Derbyshire Archeology Journal of 1957, and Mr. Manning had written at great length about this medieval earthwork, and here's what he has to say.
The earthwork in the southwest corner of the field, called the Moats, at Danner Farm, near Belper, was brought to the attention of the Nottingham University Archaeological Society by Mr. S.K. and was excavated in July 1957. A square mound is surrounded by a ditch with a slight outer bank, the entrance being a causeway across the ditch in the centre of its north side. The mound commands considerable views to the east and west but is overlooked on the north by Allport Height and on the southwest by a slight rise. It lies in Duffield Frith within half a mile of its boundary. The central mound, 60 foot square, has a level surface 4 foot above the bottom of the ditch, which is 15 to 20 foot wide. It is 12 inches higher than the outer bank, which is about 20 foot wide and 2 to 3 foot high. The central mound gradually falls away on the edge, away from the ditch. The causeway, 12 foot wide, faces almost due north. The excavation was carried out by means of 3 trenches. The first, 88 feet long and 5 feet wide, ran from the center of the mound into the field on the east. The second, intended to discover post holes or other structural remains, cleared the northeast corner of the mound, while the third was to examine the causeway. The excavation proved that although the earthwork itself was probably completed, nothing of substance was built on it. Not only were there no foundations or post holes, but there were very few finds. The pottery found suggests that the mound was made during the 4th century and that there was sporadic occupation during the 5th century. The mound appears to have been constructed by cutting the ditch and using the rock obtained to give an even foundation, some 8 inches thick. On top of this was put about 12 inches of the blue-yellow clay formed by the weathering of the sandstone. The mound was surfaced with a layer of small stones and topsoil. Since the rock layer rests directly on the old turf line, the clay and topsoil covering the bedrock must have been dumped elsewhere while the rock was being cut. The present bank can be accounted for by supposing it to be the remains of such a dump. Neither the mound, except on its surface, nor the bank produced a single find. In the sections area, the ditch had been cut about 2 feet into the rock and was 11 feet wide. The bottom contained about a foot of mixed rock and clay with no signs of silting. Above this, the filling was of the type to be expected from natural silting. It seems probable that the ditch was either never fully cleared or that some material, perhaps from the bank, was thrown back in fairly soon after it had been dug. There were no finds from the ditch below the topsoil. The causeway was formed by leaving a strip of uncut rock and surfacing it with earth and rubble. The lack of structural remains was confirmed by the second trench, which cleared an area 20 feet by 10 feet. The only finds were 10 sherds of pottery. The majority of finds, consisting of pottery and nails, came from the original surface of the mound at its center. Elsewhere, only the ditch, where it abutted the causeway, yielded more than an occasional sherd, and here, the finds were relatively few. It is interesting that there was a complete absence of bones. The concentration of finds at the center of the mound and the presence of iron nails suggest that there may have been a temporary shelter of a very slight nature erected there. In view of the relative scarcity of finds, it cannot have been occupied for any length of time. The finds from this excavation, together with a detailed report, have been deposited in the Museum of the University of Nottingham. We wish to thank the trustees of the Chatsworth settlement for permission to excavate and Mr. J.G. Hurst of the Ministry of Works for examining and reporting on the pottery. Acknowledgements are also due to Mr. K., Mr. Fletcher of Danner Farm and Professor Coates for their assistance.
This whole area was once a royal forest of Duffield, known as Duffield Frith. Without going too much into the history of Duffield Frith, in medieval times, a 30-mile area from Duffield Castle was bestowed upon Henry de Ferrers by King William, who controlled from a seat at Duffield Castle. From 1266, it became part of the Duchy of Lancaster. From 1285, it was a royal forest with its own forest court. It extended from Duffield to Wirksworth and from Hulland to Heage. Most of it became the ancient parish of Duffield, which contained the townships of Hazlewood, Holbrook, Makeney and Milford, Shottle and Windley, and the chapelries of Belper, Heage and Turnditch. The chapelry of Belper, which was built by the Duke of Lancaster for the use of the foresters. In my opinion, I do not think this site was a Norman earthwork castle or ringworks, but a tall stone-built watchtower, and once the structure had no use, the stone was robbed to build the enclosure walls which we see today. Since Belper was so close, maybe the tower was manned in shifts, hence why not much pottery or bones were found. I mention this site as a watchtower because the royal forest would not have wanted undesirable people to trespass on its lands and steal the animals that roamed freely. Since the other mooted area was a 9-mile away, it's safe to assume other structures would be built as protective points. The building of the structure seems to have been a particular response to a specific problem, the need to react quickly and efficiently to provide shelter and safety in a hostile environment. All the evidence suggests that protecting the royal forest was far from easy and took years to accomplish. The obvious linkage between the moats in the area and the forest would seem to indicate that the creation of these control areas extended control of routeways at fords and crossings into the uplands. I cannot prove any of this, but what I do know is that the structure, however tall it was in a position to control or defend. I'll let you be the judge of my findings.